The fact that everybody, whether or not you live here, you feel like you have a stake here, right?
Yes.
And I'm the Vice President of McKinley Park Development Council. McKinley Park Development Council is a community group dedicated to creating economic opportunity in the neighborhood, and that means helping small businesses, it means affordable housing, it means making things safer and more walkable so that people can get to the amenities that we have. It means, building a better physical structure to our neighborhood that benefits everyone who lives here, regardless of where they come from or what language they speak.
So I've been working with the McKinley Park Development Council for about 3 years now. And when I first started working at the council, we were in the middle of getting a neighborhood plan together around what really the priorities were for the people who live here. That got released in the middle of the pandemic. We were very excited about it, but it was also in the middle of the pandemic. So we're really excited now that we're able to be engaging people more, to be able to take some of what was in that plan and through this process really help people imagine a couple of specific sites in the neighborhood. Imagine what it is that they want and need them to be, especially along 35th Street and then by the Orange Line station. It's that whole area around the Orange Line station is totally underutilized.
Charrette is to work with a community partner and for students to engage and work with diverse communities. In our case, we're working with MPDC, and students are learning from faculty and practitioners various engagement strategies and techniques that can be utilized in both informal and formal engagement, and utilizing this community feedback and local knowledge to develop designs for 3 public infrastructure improvement projects in McKinley Park.
The first one, 3 of my colleagues, myself, Christina and Sarah Egan, came to the studio and helped essentially prepare a presentation for the students to highlight what the Charrette process is all about.
Yeah, so on the professional partner side, Manisha and I happened to meet just by sheer luck. And I was like, hey, here's this person in Chicago and I know this face. And we got talking and they were kind enough to engage with us and do this work pro bono. And similarly, IPCE, which is our institutional partner, we housed in the same college, and civic engagement is their mandated aim, so we collaborated around that idea as well.
Building the community profile and kind of delving into the data is really important, just to give us a baseline knowledge of the types of things that we could expect to encounter and kind of help us create a framework for the types of activities and the types of engagement we were looking to solicit from the public. So that definitely kind of acted as the bedrock or the foundation for kind of fleshing out a strategy for the community engagement.
Building on our community profile, it was important now to visit McKinley Park. So John, Tony, and Mike took us on an awesome tour of our 3 public infrastructure improvement sites, starting at the 35th and Archer L station.
I guess kind of how decisions are made. Since this particular site is, it's a city-owned site, you got to go through CTA, Alderman's office, all that, all that kind of stuff. So they're sort of like the arbiters of what can happen, I guess. So it's going to be a little challenging probably for this one to actually get something off the ground, but that doesn't mean it can't happen, right?
My vision for 35th Street is to have a walkable hub of activity, community spaces, plazas where people again can meet each other, create that community with each other, and just be a tiny, almost unheard of neighborhood, but just be together in spaces that are green and that are community oriented.
We would love to see a development of 35th Street, a redevelopment of 35th Street with coffee shops and cafes and more foot traffic, garbage cans, more bike racks, benches, greenery. That would be really helpful.
I would definitely have to agree as far as bike lanes.
Tenemos bastantes lotes vacíos, edificios abandonados. Me gustaría tener también, algunas cosas que pudiésemos trabajar todos juntos en cómo organizar la comunidad, cómo organizar la calle 35, donde el cambio sea completamente bonito para toda la comunidad y que todos nos identifiquemos como comunidad. Trabajemos juntos, trabajemos fuertes, trabajemos con las autoridades para que todo lo que podamos ver no hoy, quizás en 5 años, sea un éxito para todos.
I noticed there's no windows on that street. We don't have a community center actually. Because when I try to find information about our community, sometimes it's the McKinley Park. But McKinley Park, there is not, that's the McKinley Park Center, but I don't think it's a community center.
Oh, I have lots of ideas about 35th Street. Really would love to see 35th Street revitalized with local commerce, so small businesses, mom and pops, cute restaurants, so everybody can meet and gather, and also take stake and pride in the fact that this is McKinley Park. We're putting money back into South, and we're helping business owners here.
An important goal for this project and the Master in City Design program is building university community partnerships that build on the great city's commitment to engaging the communities and advocating for equity in the plan-making process and supporting residents and organizations like MPDC to plan, design, and envision the future and see their plans implemented.
Today at the McKinley Park Fieldhouse, we had a pop-up engagement, community engagement. So it was really great meeting people, and also my favorite activity at the pop-up today would be the kids engagement and also the dot polling. Actually, the dot polling was quick and easy, but also it was really helpful. We got a lot of feedback for the dot polling.
It's first experience for me, so I think it's very good, and it's hard to get people engaged at first, but especially the Asian community, but after I talk with them, they do have thoughts. They have their own opinions for those community, but they just at first they are very shy to engage with us. So I think the strategy to communicate with Asian community is first is language and
if we have like those materials are all translated in Chinese, they will be more engaged with the pop-up activities. So I think it's just like it's hard at the start, but when they engage it, they will like open themselves to talk about it.
Yeah. So actually, our neighbors, both our left and also right neighbors, and they are Chinese people. So I never see they go out like these kind of activities, but they love their families very much. I think for them, one thing is the lack of the communication skills.
Actually, I thought about that last night a lot. I guess first thing is maybe they don't know it. I know you post like Facebook, Instagram or Twitter, but they even don't know that. And the third thing I get is cultural difference, because here in the US, people want to get involved in the events to like, I do something for myself, for our neighbors, we need to hold together to change things, to make it better. But in China, usually the big kind of stuff, instruction about the building, about the housing, that's government thing. Government will handle it. Yeah, as a resident, we can provide some suggestions, but we could not do a lot. So government will handle the big stuff. So I guess that might be the reason. That's only my opinion.
This whole neighborhood planning process has not been without challenges. There's a lot of misconceptions about what affordable housing means. And so one of the biggest messages that we want to get out to all of our neighbors is that when we say affordable housing, we mean housing that you can afford. It means providing quality options so that as your home life changes, you can stay in the neighborhood.
I think affordable housing is a good idea for me. I think they can afford for people who love this place, like the old couple just live downstairs of us, and they have lived here for a long time. I think if there's a lot of housing can hold them, that's very good.
Everybody on
The irony of that. Let's start over.
Well, that's one of the things we want to fix. There is a truck route down 35th Street, which you may hear in the background. And it has gotten significantly busier with the number of warehousing and last mile delivery services that are growing on Ashland. We're getting a lot more traffic through here.
And I live right next to Ashland, and everything that has been developed in the last even 5 years has all been warehouses that bring more diesel trucks and trucks in general. The Google factory, the Amazon, all of those businesses.
It's a real concern for the neighborhood, as this is our main commercial corridor. This is where our small businesses are, and we want everyone to be able to walk to those businesses. Perhaps even more importantly, it's a concern because our elementary school is a block away.
Down the street from me, a child from Namaste a couple years ago was hit by a truck and unfortunately died, right? So that traffic is dangerous for our community, not just because of the pollution, but also in terms of like the giant trucks driving down the street, right?
McKinley Park is really well organized, and our neighbors care a lot. People really look out for each other here, and people are very invested in the success of a neighborhood because we know that we rise or fall together. I think what's been, and even having said that, I'm still surprised by how engaged people have been and how willing they are to contribute to this process.
Right at 35th and Archer at the L stop, which is one of our 3 public infrastructure improvement projects. We hosted open house hours for 2 days from 4 to 7 p.m. and this offered the opportunity for residents that had a bit more time, say 10 to 15 minutes, to engage in longer term activities that focused on telling us what culture means to them through a drawing activity. Also, how to design their ideal street in a street design game. They also prioritized how they might want to spend $1 million through a participatory budgeting activity, to name a few. So the open house really offered a menu or suite of activities from our pop-ups and new activities that we also pilot tested for the upcoming Charrette.
In this current phase of the project, our goal is to get some drawings that the neighborhood has said we want things to look like this. These are some of the ideas, some of the new places we want to see in the neighborhood. To get some drawings with which we can approach the city and our other elected officials. And hopefully we can turn some of those plans into a reality. The most important thing here is that these are ideas that are coming from the neighborhood and not ideas that a developer is bringing into the neighborhood. We want it to be what people who live here actually want.
Bueno, también estamos viendo de qué forma también las autoridades nos pueden ayudar, a todos los negocios pequeños como el nuestro. También quizás, no sé, podemos ser escuchados de alguna o de otra forma para que las autoridades sepan que estamos aquí, de qué manera nos pueden ayudar. Y también, pues no nomás a mí, sino a todos los negocios locales que tanto nos ha afectado la pandemia.
The Alderman's office, we've been also in touch with the councilman. We've asking questions regarding zoning, like we have been already, because we're looking to open a storefront. We believe in McKinley Park and we know that this is something that has to happen. So we're ready to move into the next step. I think finding an actual spot has been very difficult, to be honest. We thought there was going to be a lot of availability amongst locations, but a lot of them are just either abandoned or not able to contact. So I feel like the availability of that and maybe some zoning issues that make these spaces available, I feel like that's something that we've struggled the most with.
Yes, as a council and as neighbors, we definitely have concerns about the ward boundaries that are changing, specifically because this project centers on 35th Street, and 35th Street is going to be split north and south. So we certainly don't want to see either side of the street get left out in whatever happens next. And this change the ward boundaries is going to make it more complicated for us to make these things a reality. We're going to have everybody work together. We're going to have to get to know 2 aldermen now, and do our best to coordinate that. It's going to take even more effort from the community. We certainly hope that our elected officials will get on board.
Well, what's really great about tonight's Charrette is that the students are showcasing a wide variety of ways that you can engage the community. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of endeavor. You need to provide opportunities for people to engage in tactile ways, in verbal ways, in artistic ways, and the students have designed a number of stations that break out the issues into really clear asks, and then offers community members a wide variety of ways that they can contribute their own thoughts and their own preferences for what the future of their community looks like.
The fun part was we received a lot of feedback, and also there were a lot of people pouring into the community space, and we were happy to have them because they came up with wonderful ideas.
I was working at the housing station, and it was a great experience to engage with the community. They were very involved and engaged in making their decisions on the types of housing that they'd love to see in the community, the type of investment in housing they'd like to see.
I was working with the housing section, which was 3 different boards, which I had the spectrum board where we were asking between 2 different choices all the way down. It was very obvious that people wanted housing with community spaces. People were more interested in traditional looking housing, but they were very curious about modern look, but they were more concerned about the way that a modern looking place could affect their neighborhood, so more of the policy implications. And then housing look and feel, so that was a dot polling board, and then a board with a bunch of post-it notes where residents were telling us what they thought 35th Street was missing. A lot of people just wanted places to go and hang out, and bars, arcade, restaurant, live music, just things to do in their neighborhood.
I was working at the transit station doing an activity that asked people to map how they get around the neighborhood. So we used push pins and different colors of yarn that represented different modes of travel, and we had people map out the paths that they usually take. We also asked them to identify anywhere along the path that is causing them any issues in their travel, and just generally had conversations about getting around, walking, biking, driving, and any areas that they felt like could be improved and made better for travel. We talked a lot about bike lanes, a lot about intersection, like a lot about for pedestrian safety, like intersections that should have crosswalks but don't. Heard a little bit about accessibility and challenges for people with mobility impairments, particularly with like the sidewalks being cracked in places and how that makes it difficult for people to get around.
I did the street redesign section, and we got a lot of inputs and feedback from the community members. Most of the people, what was common among them was they wanted wider sidewalks, they were so interested in bike lanes, they didn't want that heavy traffic, they wanted to slow down the traffic and have more pedestrian safety. So this is how it, we came up with different designs for different people.
Boards that we were looking at related to third place, which is kind of the place that you like to hang out when you're not at home, when you're not at work, where you feel comfortable, and trying to connect that with kind of manifesting how culture presents itself in a physical form. And so asking people where they like to hang out, and then why they like to hang out there, the attributes that those spaces tend to hold, and then what types of spaces in various categories they feel like are missing, specifically related to things like arts, community, culture, and kind of recognition of the diversity that's present within the community.
As a person who lives in a community, I was really inspired by the engagement. So that was my takeaway, that if you ask, they will come. So that was an awesome takeaway for me.
I was actually really blown away, firstly, by the number of community members that showed up to the community meeting and their eagerness to really participate in the process, to really be free with giving ideas about what they'd like to see in the community. And this really talks about a community that wants to move forward together. You know, a community that wants to be expressive, that wants their neighborhood to be really a reflection of their personality, of their needs, of their wants, of their desires, of their families. So I think they really look at this, at the neighborhood, as really a place to come together. And to see all that output from the community members and how eager they were to give their input was really, really fascinating today.
In preparing for the final showcase, I hope that the students bring with them the knowledge that they are really the vessel for the community. It's really their responsibility to represent the community's values and desires in their work. And so with every statement, I hope that they'll be thinking about what we heard from the community is. And this is how we've represented that desire in the concepts that we bring today.
We hope this is just the start of a much longer term partnership with MPDC, and we can't wait to see the next step the community takes in making their ideas and district plan a reality.